Young Jeezy, a man who I feel like he does get his flowers in a way for sure, no doubt, but I don't think that my generation really understands how huge he was in his prime and the impact that he had when he was coming up and the reign he had during his prime. I said the same thing in one of my videos about Lil Wayne, where a lot of the newer generation didn't see Lil Wayne during his prime when he was just on like a different level. Jeezy though had a crazy wave, and we'll see as I recap it in a few minutes. But before I get more into the video, I would first like to thank you guys for coming to see this, because you guys keep me doing a million other things right now, but instead you're here with me and I appreciate that. If you guys like the content, you guys should like, comment, and subscribe to help the channel grow. Also, follow my Instagram too, that would be greatly appreciated. Comment your favorite verse, lyric, etc. Give me your top 5 favorite songs from this project as well. My personal top 5 favorite songs off of this album are Go Crazy, Soul Survivor, Standing Ovation, Get Your Mind Right, and Gangster Music. How did this album impact you, and what was it like in your life when it dropped? Let me know in the comment section below. Also, let me know where you're tuning in from as well. Represent where you're from. Alright, without further ado, let's get it. A good place for us to start off this video would be to talk about the release of Trap or Die. There's actually quite a few tracks from Trap or Die that ended up appearing on Let's Get It Thug Motivation 101, which we'll discuss later, but the Trap or Die mixtape was a phenomenon. Definitely had the streets going crazy, and Jeezy was definitely on the rise, especially because this tape and DVD. About the mixtape, Jeezy would say, "To be honest with you, I had a lot in my life going on at the time, which was probably going to cut my life short as far as freedom. The reason why Trap or Die was so potent, I always thought in the back of my mind that I was going to be either incarcerated or deceased, and I just wanted to be heard. So Trap or Die was so real because I just wanted to be heard and felt it would be my only and last time. So I gave it everything I had. It was no cut on it. It was straight the truth. I felt like this was my only chance for people to hear me." Jeezy thinks that he wouldn't have a record deal or any influence if he didn't do that tape. He remembers when he was doing that tape and people were telling him that he was crazy for even doing a mixtape and not an album. Jeezy felt like the streets needed to hear him, and he remembers putting out the DVD with Trap or Die because people didn't know who he was. He wanted people to see who he was because he was getting booked for shows along with other things, and people didn't know what he looked like. Trap or Die was a part of the Gangster Grill series, which was hosted by DJ Drama, and DJ Drama thinks that this very mixtape is one of the top 3 most influential mixtapes of the modern generation. Here's what he had to say about it. "It was something that was very crucial and launched Jeezy's and my career, really setting a new blueprint for what mixtapes would be to people's careers. It took what 50 Cent had already established and took it to even greater heights. 50 Cent had made an impact with mixtapes, taking other artists' music and flipping it and making it into his own. Then Jeezy and I came along and followed in those footsteps, basically creating the street album. Trap or Die was the new standard to what you needed to accomplish to be that next guy." Definitely let me know in the comments how it was for you when Trap or Die dropped and what was your reaction to it. The mixtape and DVD really did a lot for Jeezy's career and would spring a lot of things into action for him. In 2004 is when Jeezy would sign to Def Jam Records. The reason why Jeezy went to Def Jam is because he went to places like Interscope, Bad Boy, Warner Brothers, Universal, etc., but he felt like Def Jam had the biggest movement at the time. He didn't want to go where he would be a big fish in a small pond, and instead went somewhere where there were a lot of fish in the pond, in his words, to get his G on. He did this to keep his game up so he would come correct because he was on Def Jam with the greats. Around this time period, Def Jam had acts like LL Cool J, Method Man, Ghostface Killah, Ludacris, etc. These were also the tail end of the Rockefeller days before the split, so you also had like Jay-Z and Kanye as well when we talk about the Rockefeller part of things. Young Jeezy caught the attention of Jazzy Faye, who then went and got L.A. Reid, and the rest is history. The thing is that Jeezy was not only super hot at the time, but he had CTE, Boyz in the Hood, and USDA going at the time. CTE being Jeezy's label, which stands for Corporate Thugs Entertainment, and USDA meaning United Streets Dope Boys of America, which was a group that Jeezy was a part of. CTE is CTE, but as far as the groups, we can start off with Boyz in the Hood, and Jeezy was a part of this group at a period in time. Boyz in the Hood was under Bad Boy South, which was the southern division of Bad Boy Records. Southern rap was really starting to get hot, and Diddy really wanted to capitalize off of this, and the first act that released under Bad Boy South was Southern legends 8-Ball and MJG. Shout out to my dad because he had me listening to them when I was very young. The second act ended up being Boyz in the Hood, and they were marketed as being the new NWA or the NWA of the South. We know now today that this couldn't be anything further from the truth, especially with the impact that the group had and how it ended. While being under Bad Boy, the group would release their self-titled debut album in June of 2005, with it peaking at number 5 on the Billboard 200 charts. It was led by the single Dem Boys, which peaked at number 56 on the Billboard Hot 100. On this track, you can really hear the upside that group member Jody Breeze and Jeezy had. Jody killed the hook, and to me, he had a pretty solid verse, but with Jeezy especially, you can tell that he was going to be something for sure. The thing is that the story goes that not that long after this album dropped is when Jeezy left the group. It's been talked about that Jeezy was accused of putting his duties as a group member on the back burner to focus his time and efforts on what would become Let's Get It Thug Motivation 101, which released roughly a month after the debut Boyz in the Hood album. Now we're going to talk about USDA, and here's what Jeezy had to say about them in 2005. Right now, they working. USDA, that's my clique. CTE, that's my label. Right now, we've got a couple of situations on the table, getting ready to drop the movement, the album. So it's real. I'm trying to keep it real street, so like you was asking me about the mixtape thing, that's my chance to keep it right there at that. That's my project. Dealing with Def Jam, you wouldn't want to bring them just all street music and expect them to promote it like that, cause that ain't what they do. Mixtapes, I got that street stuff on Smash, so it's not hard. Another thing to discuss that is very important is that before Let's Get It Thug Motivation 101 was released, Jeezy would appear on the song So Icy or Icy with Gucci Mane. Now I'm not going to get too into their beef because their beef with each other has been covered to death, covered to death. And there's already plenty of in-depth videos about what went on between them. So as we know that they both appeared on the song So Icy, and it ended up being on Gucci's debut album Trap House, which released in May of 2005. Now according to Zaytoven himself, who produced the track, he has said that Jeezy wanted the song, but he turned him down and gave it to Gucci. This is said to be the initial cause of the beef between Jeezy and Gucci. Zaytoven could have definitely given the song off to Jeezy, who was a bigger artist at the time, but he had a deeper relationship with Gucci and stuck by his man Gucci. Jeezy was hit with 2 devastating events before his debut studio album would come out. First, he was struck with Bell's palsy, which basically, by definition, is the paralysis of the facial nerve, which can cause muscular weakness on one side of the face. Rapper Conway the Machine actually has Bell's palsy on the right side of his face, I believe, for those who want an example, but his was due to him getting shot in the face. But video of him coming very soon for my Griselda fans. Jeezy managed to recover from this and then took on a grueling touring schedule to make up for lost time, and then was hit with another medical issue. Keep in mind that Jeezy had never been taught how to perform, and he had a show in Jacksonville, Florida. He was yelling and screaming his lyrics, and at the end of his performance, his throat had a burning sensation, and he knew that something was wrong. Jeezy couldn't talk or really do anything, and he was told that he needed to get surgery. Jeezy was scared because he didn't have insurance at the time. For those who don't know what polyps is well, basically it's small fleshy growths which form on the vocal cords, usually as a result of overuse, and obviously as a musician you tend to use your vocal cords a lot. There was some uncertainty about what could the surgery do because there could be a chance that he could never talk again or his voice could change. Jeezy did manage to recover from this as well after the surgery, and as you guys can see, this is one hell of a backstory behind this album. The man literally was thrown 2 medical issues that could have ended or drastically impacted his career. Speaking of impacting careers, on a side note, Jeezy has said that it was T.I. that got him fully out of the streets and to focus on his rap career. Some additional notes is that Jeezy would drop The Streets Is Watching in 2004 for those who are fans of that project. But while doing research for the Thug Motivation album, I learned of a crazy story about the photo shoot of that album. Upon being at the photo shoot, Jeezy learned that the money in the photo shoot was fake and he was horrified. He then asked how much prop money was being used for the shoot and he was told $2 million. And this isn't prop money, by the way. They didn't actually spend $2 million in prop money, and obviously, I'm not even gonna get into all that. But Jeezy would then duck off and make a phone call, and in less than 30 minutes, some of Jeezy's people pulled up armed with duffel bags and pulled up with about $1.8 million in real money. That is literally insane, like super crazy. But when they realized they were $200,000 short, Jeezy sent some people to his car and made up for the rest of it. When asked about why he did this, Jeezy responded that he can't talk to people about Thug Motivation when he has fake money in the boxes because that would make him just like every other rapper. Super crazy, even though like you can barely even see the money like in the boxes on the front cover at least, but like yeah, but he went and he did it anyway. The final thing I want to touch on is Jeezy's involvement with BMF before his Thug Motivation 101 album. This definitely played a huge part in his come up, and that's well documented. This is also something I'm not really going to get too much into because if you know, you know, and there's already so much stuff out there about Jeezy and BMF alone. I just thought that I should mention it because I don't want to open up a whole can of worms, kind of like with the Gucci situation, like, you know what I mean? I just want to end this section and get to breaking down the album. Let's Get It Thug Motivation 101 would release in July of 2005 and peak at number 2 on the Billboard 200, selling 172,000 copies in its first week. In this next section of the video, I will break down the album track by track and tell you a little history behind each song. The story behind the first song on this album is that the first track, Thug Motivation 101, was a pre-warm-up because to Jeezy, the real intro was the song Standing Ovation. The track Standing Ovation has an interesting history behind it because Drumma Boy asked Jeezy to pick a beat and Jeezy ended up choosing one, but the only problem was that Drumma Boy already gave that beat to someone and they already paid for it and he didn't want to lose the respect of his homeboy. Drumma wanted Jeezy to give him some acapellas because Drumma has started making beats from acapellas. The song went through multiple phases, but on the last attempt, Drumma re-listened to Trap or Die and noticed that Jeezy liked horns and trumpets and incorporated that into the beat, and Jeezy finally approved of the song when he listened to it and they mixed the record right there on the spot and turned in the album that same day. The song is just like triumphant, and I'm telling y'all, I have never sold an ounce of nothing like in my life. Like I don't sell or do none of that, you know what I mean? But when Jeezy said, once upon a time I used to grind all night with that residue that was iPod White, yeah, bro, I lost it. Stank face immediately. I don't know why, but that line is just super cold to me, like crazy. But the next track is Gangster Music, and Jeezy actually asked to put the gunshots in the beginning of the track, and he really wanted to say the line, "I'm here now, you old news." Here's what Shawty Red, the producer of the track, had to say about the song. We actually sampled certain themes out of the movie Blow because we stayed watching that movie. We watched Blow like 10 times a day, and there was certain parts of the movie that actually were the hook. That's what we had in gangster music, but they wouldn't clear it. So we had to regroup and come up with the gangster music hook. I basically made the music around certain scenes in his life out of the movie Blow, and I just built around it. And that's how that beat came about. That's how that song came about. Shawty Red also said that he wanted an anthem and wanted to change the tempo up a bit because he felt like they already had like a bunch of slower records and opted to make something that would stay moving drum wise. He still wanted to keep the sonic synth sounds and the scariness to the track. The next track is Let's Get It, Sky's the Limit, and the producer for the track, Midnight Black, brought Young Jeezy a batch of beats, and the beat that we have today was one of the ones that Jeezy heard. Jeezy thought that this beat was on some Scarface stuff and felt like it could have been on the soundtrack to that movie. In the hook of the song, you will hear Jeezy reference and flip a famous line from the movie Scarface. In Scarface, Al Pacino says, "The road is yours, Chico, and everything in it." While in Let's Get It, Sky's the Limit, Young Jeezy says, "The road is yours and everything in it, and the road is yours and every girl in it." Young Jeezy felt like the original quote from Scarface at the time was the biggest statement that he'd ever heard in his life coming from where he came from, so he really believed that. Young Jeezy watched the movie Scarface religiously because of, in his words, what he was about. He said a lot of kids was watching Superman and he was watching Scarface. Here's what he had to say about it. And I wanted to make an anthem that felt like it could have been in the movie. When you hear that, the world is yours and everything in it, it's out there, get on your grind and get it, you can see that that's the only thing that he had, that we had in common. I can see it in his eyes in the movie. I can see it in my eyes when I get up in the mirror. We really believe that stuff. The next track is And Then What, which was the first single for the album. Jeezy had talked about how he was inspired by the Manny Fresh and Cash Money era. He said that he watched it, he seen it, felt it, grinded to it, and hustled to the music that they were making. He was buying Rolexes and a Lexus along with other things that they were saying because that they were talking about it. Jeezy loved Manny as a producer because he just felt like Manny Fresh felt the music. Manny Fresh would come to Atlanta and him and Jeezy would work together, and Then What was one of, if not the first records that they came up with. It was Manny Fresh who came up with putting in the boom boom clap part and was inspired by the Joan Jett song I Love Rock and Roll and envisioned how people would react to it. Young Jeezy just remembers going on stage for about 20,000 people and he performed the record and watched the whole crowd in Atlanta stomp and clap and realized what Manny was trying to do. Genius. What's funny is that Manny said that when he did the boom clap part, initially some of Jeezy's guys thought that it wasn't gangsta, but Manny told them that it was going to be one of the big parts of the song. The next track is Go Crazy, and this featured Jay-Z and was produced by Don Cannon. This song was actually the third single from this album, and actually I believe that Jay-Z was the president of Def Jam at this time. I'm pretty sure, maybe, I don't know. But Jeezy was listening to a T.I. mixtape and he heard this beat on the tape. Jeezy asked who did it and found out that it was Don Cannon. He would then call Don Cannon saying that he needed a beat like the one T.I. rapped on, and Don said that T.I. wasn't going to use the beat and that T.I. just freestyled to it. Jeezy was confused by this, and Don said that T.I. wasn't using the beat, so Jeezy asked to buy the beat. Young Jeezy wanted Jay-Z on the song, and he went on and played the song for Jay at a meeting and asked him if he wanted to get on it. Young Jeezy would send Jay-Z the beat, but Jay would take a while, and a couple of weeks later, Jay called Jeezy and told him to come by his hotel. Jay would tell him that he was going to officially do the record, and I'm glad that Jay-Z ended up doing that. Don Cannon was watching the movie Dead Presidents, and there were a few things on the soundtrack that he liked and made a beat based off of the movie. Great movie, by the way. Definitely one of my personal favorites. The next song is Last of a Dying Breed, and upon listening to this song, Jeezy felt like it was real quote-unquote Tupac-ish, and he felt that the two hardest people out at the time was Trick Daddy and Young Buck. Jeezy called Trick Daddy and he knew that he was setting the cadence. Young Jeezy was back and forth about using the song, but Young Buck pulled up to the studio and did his verse, and this made Jeezy change his mind. Young Jeezy would write the hook and he got his homie Lil Will to sing the hook. The next song is My Hood, and it was produced by Lil C, and Jeezy knew that it was going to be an anthem. Lil C didn't know how big the song was going to be at the time, and this ended up being the last single for the album. Then we get to Bottom of the Map, and they were wrapping up the album, and the producer for the track, Shawty Red, came in and played the beat, and Jeezy looked at him and he had a hook as soon as he played the beat. He wanted the record immediately, and this was the last track that was done for the album and was recorded right then and there. The song was done in about 15 minutes. The next song is Get Your Mind Right, and this is once again produced by Shawty Red. They recorded this in Shawty Red's basement with just Jeezy and Shawty. They didn't even have a vocal booth. The 11th track on the album is Trap Star, and here's what Jeezy had to say about the song. Mr. Clout Park came by the studio, and we was in there making the album, and he played the beat, and I was like, yo, this crazy. At the time, I loved the horns. I had to go to New York, and when I got back, I got straight in the studio, and I started writing it. I got the hook done and the first verse done, and then we listened to the hook, and Mr. Clout Park was like, damn, you forgot a letter. I said it's T-R-A-P-S-T-R. I forgot the A. Shoot, that's what being a trap star is all about. You can forget stuff and nobody gonna say anything to you. I'ma keep it like that. I don't wanna try to fix it. There were talks about putting somebody else on the track with Jeezy, but he wanted to keep it as a solo song. Mr. Clout Park originally took the horns out of the verses but left the horns on the hook, but he felt like it sounded better, but Jeezy wanted the horns all throughout the song. It was soon changed to how Jeezy wanted it. Bang would be the next song, and it featured T.I. and Lil Scrappy, and it was produced by Jazzy Faye. Young Jeezy would go to T.I.'s house while he was on house arrest. He had a studio in his basement and they recorded it right there. Jeezy was actually going to give this song to T.I., but Jeezy changed his mind and T.I. hopped on the song. Then Jeezy ran into Lil Scrappy and told him that he had this crazy song and he wanted him to get on. Jazzy Faye and Jeezy already had the beat, the hook, and the chorus before T.I. and Lil Scrappy got on the song. The next song is Don't Get Caught, and here's what Jeezy had to say about this song. With Don't Get Caught, I was like, y'all want some music? And they broke out all the instrumentals and made this live in the studio. I was just sitting there listening to it, and it brought me to this time. I remember when I got pulled over. I was on the way to see my son. At the time, I was into some other things, so I didn't know if the stop was going to be routine or it was going to be a situation where I was going to end up being locked up. I didn't have no license either way. I kind of talked my way through it, and it just taught me treat people to be respectful until you feel disrespected. And then you just go above and beyond to some people that you ain't nothing to play with. Jeezy was respectful and got let go. Jeezy was shocked because he just thought of police as bad. All of them. But Jeezy learned from this experience. The next song is Soul Survivor with Akon, and Akon sent his brother over to the studio and he had a CD. Jeezy met with him and he gave him a CD, and then Jeezy went in the studio. Young Jeezy just started recording, which was like the 5th song, and he just put a verse on it because the hook was already on there. Young Jeezy would play it for Shakir Stewart, R.I.P., and he thought that the song was crazy. Jeezy thought that Soul Survivor was a commercial song, but he was trying to stay street. He also didn't realize how big Akon was in Africa and everywhere else. Jeezy at this time just thought if he had the streets of Atlanta on lock, then he was good. Jeezy didn't realize how big Akon was until after the song came out, and he started to travel. Here's what Akon had to say about the song. At the time, we was all running together. Big Meech had called and told me that he signed this new act and he needed my support getting him to a certain level. When I met Jeezy, me and him clicked instantly. We met at Patchwork Studios and he was like, listen, I need a record from you. And I was like, absolutely. At the time, I was going through all my records that I hadn't had a chance to release yet, and I came across a beat that I had made a while ago, and I'm like, oh, this beat will be perfect for Jeezy. So after that, I just started writing to it, put the chorus on it, and I sent it to him. He heard it, and obviously he was super crazy over it. I was like, whoa, lay your vocals and send me the stems, and then I can take it to mixers and do what I've got to do with it. And from there, it was history. The next song is Trap or Die with Bun B, and Bun B is one of Jeezy's favorite artists. Young Jeezy would call Bun B, and Bun B just happened to be in Atlanta on a day off. Bun B came by the studio and played him the song Trap or Die and said that Bun B should put a verse on it. Bun B did it, and upon hearing it, Jeezy thought that it was bigger than a song and said that it was a movement. This song actually got Jeezy to do the Trap or Die mixtape because he put the song on the Trap or Die mixtape first before he put it on the album, which Jeezy considers to be one of the best decisions that he ever made. The song after this is Tear It Up, featuring Lloyd and Slick Pulla. Jeezy wanted a record for the ladies and wrote the hook himself. Young Jeezy met with Lloyd and told him that he had a song that he wanted him to check out. Just picture in your head Young Jeezy trying to sing this hook to Lloyd. Like, yeah, no, true story. Jeezy actually sang this hook to Lloyd. I can't even imagine how that was like. The next track would be That's How You Feel, and Jeezy recorded that, and then after, he took a big trip to Cancun, and when he came back, he was playing songs on his iPod and just remembered thinking that he wanted to throw the song on the album. It was one of his favorites, but he just liked the singing and liked the beat. He put it on the album because he could, and he felt that it resonated. It wasn't meant to be on the album. He wanted to put that song on a mixtape, and Shawty Red, who's the producer of the song, disagreed. The next song is Talk to Him, and this came off of the Trap or Die mixtape. There were mixtape songs that Jeezy felt like the world needed to hear, so he put them on the album, and these are the records that he recorded in Shawty Red's basement. Jeezy didn't think that everybody heard the mixtape, so he didn't want to take the chance of people not hearing them. The last song, Air Forces, was also on the Trap or Die mixtape. Here's what Jeezy had to say about the song. Air Forces was like when I was running around the street 100 deep. It's the guy that they could believe in, that walks around in the Air Force Ones, sees life how you see it, and understands what you're going through. And I just really believed in that. I still do. Air Forces was just like the hustler's shoe. The dope boys in Atlanta, just like you got a pair of fresh white Air Forces. 9 times out of 10 back then, it meant that you had your life together. You see somebody with some icy whites, they got a fresh white tee every time you see him, they kept their stuff up. And that's what that represented to me. This pretty much wraps up the video. I took you guys through the history behind the album itself and the history behind the songs on the album. This album is without a doubt a classic and left a big impact, especially in the streets. All in all, let me know what you guys thought of the video in the comment section below. I love you guys with all my heart. Peace.